Yeah.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, Ted, we can hear you now.
Okay, I'm just trying to find my camera settings here.
Okay.
Oh, there we are. Ta-da.
It's so
We're
nice
here.
to see you.
We're all
Okay,
here.
nice to see you too.
Okay, so today is Tuesday, August the 10th, 2021 at 3 o'clock, and I'm calling to order our meeting of the Remuneration Committee. So I welcome staff, committee members, and I don't think there's any viewing public, but just in case, welcome. Today's meeting will continue our discussion on the metrics for the compensation review of the council remuneration. If you just want to join me in a moment of reflection to consider the business before us today. Okay, and the next item on the agenda, does anyone have any pecuniary interest and general nature thereof to declare? Nope.
Well,
As far as I know, we don't have public participation today, and there are no presentations and no deputations on the agenda items. So I ask that we approve the minutes from the previous meeting from July 13th, 2021 of the Council Remuneration Committee. Can I have a first to accept the minutes?
I was going to say something. I thought that we decided in the last meeting that this was a part-time job, and I didn't see that reflected in the minutes.
Let me just have a quick look.
Because I thought that the meeting was good last time. I thought we got to know each other. And I think that was the only thing that we established in the whole meeting was we went through everything, but we established that we came to the conclusion that it was a part-time job.
Okay, I will note that in the items of discussion that we arrived at determination council positions are part-time.
Yeah. But I thought the discussion we had during the meeting was good because we basically didn't know each other. I didn't know either one of you, so I thought it was a good meeting.
Okay. Any other comments that you want to add to the agenda? Nope. Okay. I will give Margaret this update and we can have it amended for the next meeting. The next item on our agenda, it lists policy development. And I think at the present moment, what we need to review is some of the items that were still really in the discussion of the metrics required for the remuneration analysis that we're doing, as opposed to getting right into the policy information. So from the last meeting, we had determined that there were a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 comparator townships or municipalities that we were considering. And from that, Ted, you pulled out some information from the FIR data that was provided by the staff regarding these particular comparators. So if you want to take a moment or take time to explain the analysis that you did and we can discuss any of the information that you've arrived at based on these this analysis.
Okay, thank you, Miranda. I think I recall mentioning maybe 1 or 2 meetings ago that we may find that it's easy to start picking apart one metric and say, oh, that's maybe not the best one, or one particular comparative municipality. Yeah, there's some differences with Meaford and so on. But when you look at them all together, as a suite of metrics and a suite of comparators, you may actually simplify things a lot. So that as long as you can get a sense of, is this typical? Is there an outlier here in the municipality? Then it may actually simplify our analysis. And that's why I tried to put it in a visual sense of what was going on. And perhaps it would help us get past those, the inevitable question of, oh, well, capital stock is really not comparable between Owen Sound and Meaford. But, let's look at them all together. And the charts, I think, help do that. The first one is really, it didn't come from the FIR data that
Ted, before you continue, is there a possibility that you could share your screen so that everyone could see the metrics we're talking about?
I think I can. I've got it on my other computer. I can see it from my other computer. I'm on 2 computers at the same time. So let me see if I can go get that.
I think we might all be hosts, so you should be able to share your screen so everyone can see.
Okay.
You should have it on the way now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's better.
Yeah, I see it.
Oh, there we are. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. So I can't, you'll have to scroll for me, I guess. So that
I can do that.
Okay, excellent. The first chart actually comes from FIR data, but it was the chronological information that was housed on it was on the provincial municipal affairs website. It wasn't part of the initial data that Margaret sent. But I wanted to get a sense of, okay, there's been a lot of talk about, very high increases in property taxes over time within Meaford, but, when did that happen and how is it finished off? Now, I'd still like the interpretation from Matt and Margaret in terms of how this looks. I'm looking at total property taxes per household, but it's not household property taxes. It's not residential property taxes. It's actually total, I believe it's total taxes, including commercial. Would that be right?
Yes, I believe so. I think this is a bit of a difficult metric because for exactly that reason, there's lots of information combined into here. And of course, it's also based on assessment as well. So although we might say that average is getting towards $4,000 there, that's sort of very much skewed by some of the large and expensive properties around the municipality.
Yes, exactly. So I wanted to make sure that that is total property taxes, total tax revenues to the municipality divided by the number of households. So there's a blend in there. That's not necessarily a problem because in many respects, commercial taxes are absorbed by the rest of the community in many ways, from by wages, by prices paid, and earnings of the actual business owners in the community. But so just as long as you know that is a very aggregate measure of property taxes. Now, looking back sorry, Phil, you were saying something?
This municipality is a residential municipality, so the commercial does not have that much of an influence on this.
Yes, and that shows up in chart number 2.
Oh, I know that. It didn't take me long to figure that out. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. But it shows that there was some substantial increase in taxation between 2009 and 2012, where the increases have tapered off since then. I believe now. I'm going to have to find the chart again, but I believe the annual rate of increase between 2014 and 2019 is about 2% per year per household. So that's not too different than the underlying inflation rate in the community. So the kind of tax increases that we've seen in Meaford, the the increases were pretty much in the early part of this 10-year period as opposed to the later half. So just provides a little bit of context in that sense. The second chart does exactly what Phil was saying, that Meaford is much more of a residential based community than mixed. So that's why when you're looking at the red dot Meaford above the dotted line, it suggests that taxation per household, and we're only looking at the municipal, the lower tier municipal taxes, which is the blue area within chart number 1. But in chart number 2, you'll see that the average taxation per household is a little on the high side relative to the assessment, or the average house assessment per household. So that's what suggests that there is relatively small commercial tax base in Meaford compared to the other municipalities that we'd use for comparisons. All right, if we can switch to the next page. Here we're looking at municipal compensation costs per household, and with the 20 or so, 15 or so comparators, Meaford is looks like about a halfway point if you consider the lowest versus the highest. And then if you look at tangible capital assets, I'm not sure if this is the best capital measure, because there are insured assets, there are financial assets that are in here as well, and perhaps you'd have a clear definition that what is capital assets. I would think that it has to do with bridges and other kind of installed infrastructure in the municipality. Is that correct?
I'm probably not the right person to ask on this one, but yes, in essence, it's the capital costs of everything the municipality owns. So roads, bridges, facilities, etc., etc.
Right. Okay. So this, interestingly, is just a little on the less than average size when you're looking at it per household. And then if we go ahead.
I kind of wondered if this one was correct.
Yes, and that's where the I guess validation is important. I'm taking this from the data that the FIR data, and whether it's the best measure of sort of capital stock out there is because I think there's I don't have it in front of me, but I think there is a measure for insured value of assets and so on.
Because the people, the councillors that I interviewed made it very clear to me that there was 79 bridges and 240 clicks. I don't know, Matt would know the figure, of roads. And that network was larger than most municipalities.
Yes, I heard that as well. And I'm just wondering if there are other tangible assets that perhaps other municipalities have relative to Meaford. So that's a quite good question to raise.
I couldn't tell you, to be honest, whether this is accurate or not. I think we have talked in the past, and Ted just mentioned that the FIR data is somewhat interpretable because different municipalities put things in different lines of that. I would say, looking at this, that when we take into account some of the other assets, I'm not totally surprised. Places like Wasaga Beach and Sorgin Shores would have multiple very large rec centres and so on, all of which would count intangible capital assets. And obviously this is a per household measure as well. So I being higher than Grey Highlands and Georgian Bluffs and West Grey would feel correct to me. I don't know quite the same about some of the ones higher up the list.
Yeah,
it might also have an impact in terms of things like the surfaces on the roads. So our gravel roads and our surface treatment roads would likely be classed as a lower value capital asset than hard top asphalt. And I suspect in some of the ones at the further to the right of the graph, almost everything might be asphalt.
Okay. And the question I had is what would be driving the town of Goderich in this kind of measure? There must, I mean, compared to the city of Owen Sound, for example. So again, yes, I think there may be some interpretations. They're all kind of filled in individually by representatives of each of these towns and municipalities. Okay, if we move down to the next page, you can sort of see where I'm going. I'm trying to find as many different comparators as possible, and then just lay them out and sort them in the same kind of way, that in a consistent kind of way. So property taxes per household, you can see that Meaford is a little on the higher side, and I think that's partly reflected in the fact that there is not as much of actually, no, that probably doesn't make sense in terms of how the commercial mix works into that. One of the big downsides of the FIR data is that it doesn't adequately bring out the difference between residential business assessment as well as residential and business taxes. So that's a bit of a difficulty in kind of interpreting much of this information. The value of construction activity per household, I imagine, would be coming from the building departments for each of these in terms of permits and so on. And of course, it is highly variable from year to year. And so it's, I mean, this is based on 2019 data. It would be tough to say that these numbers would be stable over time. But it does suggest that Meaford is again kind of in the middle of the group. And then finally, I think the last page looks at the mayor's remuneration, and again, this is information that was supplied by Margaret, and then just laid out in the same kind of way that helps the eye judge where we are relative to the other measures. So yes, there are all kinds of qualifiers associated with how much work is involved in each of these municipalities and so on, but just a sense of where it stacks up for the eye to kind of judge. So that's really what I was trying to do in this process.
And based on the review of these findings, which ones would we want to potentially rely on for our quantitative analysis, maybe not qualitative, but somewhere to base? I know that in the past, the previous reports have relied basically on where we fall percentile wise based on the comparator salaries that are being paid in the townships selected. But because we're doing a review of the remuneration and we want to make a decision as to whether they're being fairly compensated for the work that's being completed, it's wondering that we should be broadening our scope to not just look at the remuneration, but the responsibilities and the budgets and capital requirements that they're responsible for, which I'm assuming has, unfortunately, the data analysis that we've done, although great, thank you very much, Ted, I appreciate that. Aside from the very first slide that talks about a period of time, we're only currently capturing what's happening in 2019. Maybe what we need to do is compare that to, say, 5 years ago. I'm assuming that 5 years ago, the landscape of Meaford may have been very different, or even 10 years ago than it does now, because where we fall now may change from where we fell 10 years ago, and that would tell us whether an increase is required in addition to the standard 2% inflation rate. Because right now we're only looking at a point in time, as opposed to like your graph that covers the period of time for the taxes was great, because that showed us the transition of what happened from over the last 10 years. I think we need to see And by all means, both of you can tell me whether I'm wrong on this. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out, like, the whole point of this analysis is that we are determining whether they're being compensated for the work that they're doing now, and had the work, and clearly the volume of work has changed from 10 years ago. So I think what we need to see is what the picture looked like 10 years ago and what it looks like now, which we don't have that picture right now.
I found the last chart and chart number 2 an eye opener. We've got our taxes are high and our mayor doesn't make much money, and that was kind of mind-boggling to me, because the responsibility of increasing the taxes to the level they are, isn't it time that we got to pay someone that maybe is going to look at this a little differently, or we have to pay, or a mayor, we have to, I guess what I'm trying to say is that we have to attract people that are going to look at this thing differently than what it's being looked at right now. Because the salary doesn't make sense to where the tax base is. The mayor's salary.
Yeah, I was looking at it very visually as well. And every indicator I looked at showed that Meaford was in the middle of the pack, maybe a little skewed to the right or skewed to the left, depending on which measure you were looking at. And perhaps if we increase the number of comparisons, added another 4 or 5 of them, we'd probably find more or less the same thing. And, I'm certainly willing to do that sort of thing. I don't know if going back in time would necessarily help us, because I think we'd see something like, we can probably say something like right now, or as of 2019, there's a bit of an imbalance. And I agree with Phil in this sense. If we go back to 2009, we'd probably say, well, there's probably a bigger imbalance. So I don't know if that is necessarily going to help us, but I think we should kind of think qualitatively ahead to what is likely and what is possibly in store for the municipality over the next 5-10 years, and what are we trying to either messaging to the potential mayors in the community, and what the expectations are for the kind of role that they would be taking in developing or supporting the community growth and advancement over time. So I'm thinking more of a forward look as opposed to going back 10 years, because I don't know it would necessarily help us by looking at a historical sense of what that comparison is.
The only reason,
from my point of view, sorry, Amanda.
That's okay, go ahead.
Just from our point of view, I think that I'm not sure going back 10 years worth of data would help us a lot. I think some of them we'd get very, very different data, and Ted mentioned the construction costs or construction value each year. I think that will probably be a very irregular pattern across different municipalities. But things like tangible capital assets wouldn't change a great deal, because it's kind of hard to create or remove tangible capital assets to a grand enough scale that I think would affect this. In terms of how the jobs changed, I think that the population here hasn't changed significantly over that period. And so there isn't a huge sort of workload increase in that sense. And while the province is requiring councils to do more in terms of things like asset management and so on, that would apply to all communities. So I'm not sure that sort of measuring the workload as a comparator is perhaps going to get us too far, but that's just sort of how I see it anyway.
Well, and in all honesty, the reason that I was thinking about past trends was only because how quickly things had developed, I guess, in the last 5 years, like to show we were slow in the beginning, and now it's like the last 5 years has gone like this. Therefore, that was the reason I was saying past. Future is more on the, and I live in this environment a lot of the time because I'm a forensic analyst, do forensic accounting. It's very what I call crystal ball gazing. in regards to where we think things are going. We know that things are going to be very busy in the next term for council members because of the significant amount of development that's anticipated in the coming years. And I know that the council members had mentioned that some of them have been looking forward to these developments because they've seen it coming for an extended period of time. To now actually see the developments come to fruition would be beneficial. Now, but we still need to analyze or make a decision on whether, what I'm clearly hearing is that we feel that the mayor definitely requires an increase, something a little more substantial than just the regular 2% increase.
No, yeah, like $10,000 or better.
I found myself looking at the pictures and saying, you know what, a $45,000 salary is completely in the realm of appropriate.
Yes.
In this. That puts it right in the middle of what these are for the others in the community. It's supported by the other data that we've collected in terms of where Meaford sits within, you know, the cost per household and so on. And the first chart demonstrates as well that the town or the municipality has not been spendthrift from the standpoint of tax increases. It's been 2% per year, which is for the past 5 years, which is very reasonable in many respects. So it's not as if there's any empire building going on or fears of improper taxation and spending that have not created value for the community. So, you know, those are kind of the opinions that I naturally moved to once I saw this. You know, the numbers leap off the page from an Excel sheet into a chart form. It seemed to crystallize pretty clearly for me.
Yeah, it showed me that they're not getting compensated for the responsibility they're taking on and some of the decisions that they're making. Is what it's crystal clear to me. You know, like, and if we want top caliber people to run, I think I don't care what people say. They all told me they weren't there for money, but it is a motive to do this job. You know.
Well, yes, and I think I mean, 10,000 may not affect necessarily the person running or not, or the quality of the person or not. But I think what it demonstrates is that this committee and I guess the politicians and leadership within the community as well pay attention to the context within the whole sphere. We're not trying to take advantage of some people's good nature over time, and that you know, we think that a good job requires appropriate compensation. I think that's really the kind of message
that you're saying there.
Yes.
I don't know if this is useful, but I've just had a very quick look. Based on the mayor's salary of all the comparators that we've got, the average there is $41,239. And I only raised that just because of council's mentioning the terms of reference about the 50th percentile. That doesn't lock you into that by any means, but that's where the mean is right now.
Yeah,
Right.
but the only reason that they're mentioning that is they don't want the public to think that they want money, and because that's an election issue. And I every time I was told that, I asked, are you telling me that because you don't want the older crowd in town to say that you're doing this for the money? And they all looked at me and sort of smiled and moved on. So we all know how they feel. Like, it's not hidden. It wasn't hidden at all.
But are we suggesting then, because my concern or my thought process, we're considering increasing the mayor, but what about the deputy mayor that does a lot of responsibilities and steps in when the mayor is unavailable? I understand the councillors as support to their areas may not require an increase, but the deputy mayor is just as involved or required to be a figurehead like the mayor, and is also at the present moment was only about 5,000 below. But if we're increasing the mayor from 33 to 45, which is a substantial increase, I think we're leaving the deputy mayor behind. Now, there is some.
Oh, I didn't want to suggest that we're not looking at those areas. All I was doing was taking what information we had and comparing it. I absolutely believe that there's a representative increase associated with others within government as well.
I figure that once we get past the mayor, I think we'll be looking at the deputy mayor and the councillors and what we should do for them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think what we're basically establishing is saying these people aren't getting enough money for what the responsibilities they have. I think that's what we're saying right now.
If I could suggest perhaps a methodology for that next bit, which is once you've got to a stage where you feel comfortable with what the mayor's salary could be, rather than looking at specific numbers for deputy mayor and councillor, you could look at the ratios. So if the mayor is 100%, is the deputy mayor 85% or 80%? Is a councillor 50% of the mayor, or are they 70% of the mayor? And then that means that, you know, when you present a policy at the end, you've got a consistent outlook that can then be used going forwards, rather than just saying 45,000, 35,000, and 25,000, for instance.
Yeah.
No problem with that, Matt. No, that's okay.
And that would be great if I didn't apply or create any of those ratios myself yet, but if we know what they are now, and then you know, once we establish what's appropriate for there, I only put out 45 because it was a round number. And it looked kind of right on the chart. If the real one is 43, you know, after, you know, starting September or whatever, then, you know, or 42 and a half or whatever the number Matt had mentioned. So it's, you know, I think that's reasonable.
So right now, the deputy mayor earns 81.36% of the mayor's salary, and a councillor earns 73.9%.
I don't think we necessarily have to stay with those ratios for the councillors. I don't know about.
Absolutely not. That's completely within your call.
Yeah, I don't know about.
I would have. I mean, if this is a big increase for the mayor, it doesn't necessarily mean it has to transfer to the councillors in that sense.
But didn't you hear in every one of the interviews you did that they all acknowledged that the mayor was not getting enough money?
Yeah,
they did
exactly.
to me.
Yes,
they did to me, and they also acknowledged to me that the deputy mayor needs to get more too.
Yeah,
all the councillors did.
yes.
And if I would support something like if the deputy receives 85% of the mayor's salary, which is close to what the current ratio is, but just a little bit higher.
Mm-hmm.
And the councillor's ratio is maybe 2/3 or 70%, depending on how it is. It's probably still an increase for them, but just not as much of an increase relative to the mayor and the deputy.
Yeah, I got no problem with that.
Wow, we're looking at a significant increase here.
Well, yes, and we're gonna, and you as the chair are gonna have to do a heck of a sales job.
I'm gonna have to do a what? A sales job?
A real sales job. You'll be a real charmer at the council meeting.
I have to, as chair, I have to do the presentation?
Oh yeah, you're the charmer.
Oh no! Well, I could charm all I want, but they may say no. Which is still possible.
I think if we put a good, valid argument up, I don't think that they will really question what we have to say.
No, and that's what I'm saying is that we need to look at. So
we need some visuals to explain why we've gone this way.
Right.
You know, so it hits them. It hits them when we're making the presentation. that they know where we're coming from.
Right. So earlier today, I sent both of you 2 reports that I went back and had a look at some of the other remuneration reports of people that actually did an analysis in the last couple of years. And one of them was, I found that the town of Blue Mountains relied on 2 reports that were actually quite interesting. And I posted them to the Google Drive and sent them to you today. They're both, one is put out by the municipality of like the Municipals of Ontario that analyzes the compensation for everybody. And then the other one was an article that was written by Kurt Schobiel. I might have said that wrong. I hope he does not.
Doesn't sound like he's on the call.
No, it doesn't sound like he's on the call. Both of these documents are actually really interesting, and I took the time to read them. The one about whether councillor remuneration is comparative does talk about the fact that money isn't always the driving factor. So I know that we're talking about doing an increase, and we're talking about the fact that the responsibilities of the individuals has increased over the time, but it doesn't always, an increase in money doesn't always mean better candidates.
That's right.
Sometimes it just means more people applying, but it doesn't mean that they're any more qualified or providing any better service than individuals that have already been in the position. It does talk about the 3 types of factors that are important in determining the compensation, what the accountability is of council members, the fairness of the amount that's being paid relative to comparator. I'm hearing a lot of noise in the background of somebody.
I think my wife is on a call in the other room, so I'll put my mute on.
Okay, just while I'm talking. And then the third item is transparency, being transparent to the public so that they're aware of the information that's being, or the reason for the increase. Now, our meetings are made public, so we're already being transparent. Our agendas for our meetings are posted publicly, so they're aware. What we need to do is make sure that the language in our report is clear enough that they understand the reasons for the changes. So this document, this article, How Much Is Enough, is actually really interesting. I'd like both of you to read it and see if, because we're going to need to not only look at the FER data, but we're going to have to discuss what's happening in Meaford in order to determine what compensation should be for them. That's really just a review on your own time. I don't necessarily think, I mean, we could refer to some of it in our analysis as part of our research. I think what's also missing from our analysis is, I believe that a couple of the councillors had mentioned the fact that it's like they're getting paid minimum wage. So what we need to look at is how much the income is for an individual in the area of Meaford. So I went to the census data and pulled up some information, but I'm not sure that that the issue is that Meaford is not a census. It's not specific to Meaford. I can get like Collingwood, or I can get Owen Sound, or I can get, but I can't get specific to Meaford. Now, maybe this is something that either Matt or Margaret are able to do, is to get statistical income information specific to Meaford, how much a single person is earning, how much a family is earning, how much, in order for us to determine is the compensation for council in line with the earning potential of the community in Meaford.
So no is the quick answer. We can't get that sort of data for Meaford specifically. The census don't provide it. It's something we've been trying to look for as part of our wellbeing exercise, and unfortunately the data's just not there. I might just push back a little on the idea of it needs to sort of be connected to sort of the salaries of the people within the market, within the municipality.
That's not
because
what I
as
meant.
you talked about last time. Okay, I misunderstood that.
It's more just trying to see, it's not that has to be in line with it. It's understanding what our population's income is like in order to understand the possibility of what, if we want future candidates, we need to know what possibly they're giving up in order to apply for a position like this. So understanding what individuals in the Meaford area, which sounds like it may not be a possibility, earns gives us an idea of whether the compensation we're suggesting is going to be comparative, especially since the compensation that we're suggesting is for part-time positions. Although the mayor does work a full, I don't want to say a full week because that's not necessarily the case. Some weeks is more, some weeks are less, but all three positions are being considered as part-time positions. Assuming a $45,000 mayoral rate suggests a $90,000 full-time position. But if our population in Meaford, the likelihood of somebody earning a $90,000 income is unrealistic because of the types of employment opportunities that are available in Meaford and the surrounding area, may make it harder to support a significant increase like that. Not necessarily that the number isn't right, it's just that maybe difficult to support.
So
but, go ahead.
Having
the
said
biggest
that, I
population
don't
in
have
Meaford
that.
happens to be people who have my color hair.
A significant
And,
portion, that is correct.
We're retired, and that is a very large population.
But we're also attempting to attract with the
Mhm.
developments that are coming in. We are in
Yes.
hopes of attracting, if we're talking future forward looking.
Okay. I have a
So
feeling. I have a feeling that it's still going to go for the affluent mature. Seems to be what it's attracting up here now.
Matt, what were you going
Having
to
said
say?
that, I didn't have any data for salaries. I do have something from Public Health Grey Bruce that talks about household income as opposed to individual salaries. And the most recent data in this report is 2015, because I suspect it was tied to the census that was going on at that stage. And for Meaford at that stage, the average household income was $65,792. The average Ontario income was $74,287. So I think that if we are at the stage of talking in the $40,000 to $50,000 range, we are very much in the, that's a very good salary for if it is a part-time job. I would perhaps argue that the mayor's job is not as part-time as the councillor's job is, and so you make your trade-offs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have in the interviews, all the councillors told me that they thought it was, when you take into consideration the remuneration for the county and the remuneration of the municipality, it was basically a full-time job. Is basically what the six people that I interviewed told me.
Sorry, I was speaking when I was on mute, so I thought I was being heard, but anyway, I do this all the time. I'm sorry. One of the comments I heard that, the job is as full-time as you want it to be. This is from the councillor's standpoint. So it's a matter of choice, much more of a matter of choice for them. I do agree that the choice for the mayor is a lot less flexible in that sense. They have less freedom to decide to pull back and not spend the day on municipal affairs and so on. A councillor has a lot more flexibility to be able to do that. unless somebody parks themselves in their driveway and asks, why their garbage hasn't been picked up or whatever. But I do think that there's a degree of choice in there for the politicians, but the choice is stronger or more variable for the councillors relative to the mayor and the deputy.
So now I'm a little confused, and that could just be me. At the beginning of this meeting, Phil had said we had all determined that the positions are part-time. Now I'm hearing you feel that the mayoral position is more a full-time position as opposed to.
No, I didn't say that. I just said that I think the amounts that we're talking about, the current salary, even when you consider that it's a part-time, looks low relative to the comparators that we've assembled, and maybe there are other comparators to look at, and that's fine. But that the number that is in the middle, and if it's in the between $40,000 and $45,000, that doesn't seem unreasonable for a part-time position in this community. It sounds like that. Do we have to go the same percentage increase, 32 to 42, which is about a 35% increase? Do we have to go that level higher for each of the councillors and so on? That's a decision. That's probably not. But I liked Matt's suggestion of picking a ratio and say that this ratio looks like an appropriate basis on which to form future salary increases, into the next 5 years until they redo this process and say that
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
So are we all in agreement then to the mayor being as mentioned 100%, the deputy mayor being at 85% of the mayor's 100%, and the councillors being 70% of the mayor's 100%?
I think we got to visit the 70%. I think we got to take a look at.
You're thinking that's a little too high. I was thinking that as well.
Yeah, I thought maybe 2/3, but I'd have to take a look at the numbers and see what is 67% of 43 or whatever that number is for the mayor, and how does that compare with it now? I do like increasing the deputies ratio because I think there was a desire that the deputy has a lot of standby activities that perhaps are not getting recognized right now, and it probably should be in the scheme of things.
Okay, and I think that's a good idea. But if you're going to be, sorry, Matt, do you want to say something before I continue?
I was just going to give the actual numbers for the ratio, but I can come back to that later.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
So 2/3 of the mayor's salary for councillors would equate to 28,810 based on the 2020 numbers that we have. That's about a $5,010 increase from current.
That doesn't sound unreasonable to me.
Yeah, that's yeah, sure. Yeah, that's okay.
What percentage was that? I'm sorry.
That was 2/3, 67%. And the deputy mayor, sorry, I need to start from scratch. Hold on. 43,000 times 0.85. If we did 85% of the mayor's salary for the deputy mayor, that would be 36,550, which would be a $10,350 increase. The mayoral salary of 43,000 would be a $10,800 increase.
Yeah.
That sounds quite reasonable to me.
So we're looking at total increases of just over 26,000. sorry, that's just for one. There are actually 5.
We'd be talking in the region of $45,000 in increased budget, I think.
Yeah, 46,000. Sorry, I'm just putting notes in an Excel file.
Which would be probably still a very small portion of the staff compensation costs, or not staff, but total compensation costs for the municipality,
Yes.
I would imagine.
It would. It's about 46,000 is about 1/3% of our tax supported budget.
Is that where the increase would come from?
Yes. So in effect, if this was approved this year for next year, the baseline budget would have to taxes would increase by 0.33% just to pay for this. In the very most basic of terms, because obviously there's ins and there's outs and there's ups and downs on lots of things at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Sorry. So do we want to, in regards to the analysis, it sounds like we're arriving at some salary increase numbers, but supported information out of the analysis that you did, Ted. Are we saying table 2 and the last table are really the ones that we're going to rely on? Or is there more more of these analysis that are needed?
I think we should use at least what I provided, maybe with corrections or context within some of them, like capital or building costs and so on. But if there's other, if there are other measures that we should have, I think that would bolster the justification. If we only had the second chart is really tough to, I mean, scattergrams are really hard to interpret. Most people can't look at them properly. So I don't know how helpful that's going to be in demonstrating. But if you're trying to get a sense of, is the red line in the middle of the scale in all or most of the categories we're looking at, then isn't it appropriate that, you know, the line on the compensation is in the middle of the scale as well? And I think that's really what we're trying to demonstrate.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're of the opinion that we should be including all of these tables along with an explanation.
Yeah.
Like your discussion that you've gone through already that talks about each one of these items. Do you have time to put a blurb beside each one to explain what the chart is telling you?
I can do that. And I'm sorry, you did ask for the background data in there as well. So I basically had in the first tab is the data that Margaret had sent within the FER, and then tab number 2 was the data I extracted from that first tab, and then created the charts from it. You know, sorted the numbers and so on. So it's all there in terms of the references, and I can probably use it again to, I mean, if there are suggestions on other metrics to include, just as a safety valve, you know, maybe I missed something, or maybe, you know, again, capital isn't the best definition here, or there's something else. You know, maybe we should try to look at an income or a household income measure and see how where that is, because I think that may help things as well.
Now, Matt did provide us, and maybe Matt could send out to us the average household income information that he mentioned on the call in regards to 65,000 being in Meaford and Ontario being 74 in relation to 2015, and we can always inflation adjust it to 2019 numbers since we're looking at 2019.
That's right.
We can
Or if I could-
absolutely do that.
Yeah. It would be best if we could have it for each of those municipalities in the comparators, if that's possible.
Matt, is that possible?
So the report that I've found, and I don't have the base data for it, but the report that I found covers Grey and Bruce counties. So it deals with quite a few of the comparators, but not all.
Okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, if you could share it with us, and that we're able to look at it and determine whether that actually is a, if you could also inflation adjust the numbers to 2019, show us the 2015 numbers and inflation adjust, that would be helpful. So Ted,
Well, I could do that as well. I've got access to using CPI is fine. Well, I don't know if CPI is the best way to do it, but we could use it with average wage increases in Ontario and see how that factors in. And I might be able to find something on, if we're talking about household incomes, I think StatCan does have more information in that category. I'll go digging around as well, just in case.
I can send you, or I'll upload to the drive. I've downloaded 3 tables already in regards to if you give me just a second, I'll tell you which ones I have, and then it'll give you an idea. I downloaded today one that's on household income, one that's based on family style, so single, married with children, and the third one, I can't remember what the third one is now, but I'll load the tables in. They're from Statistics Canada for the last census, and I downloaded the entire table. So you have Canada, Ontario, then it goes down into the census. So as I said, we can't get specific to Meaford, but we can get surrounding areas like Collingwood and Owen Sound. We can get Barrie, although may not be a very good comparator, but I will upload those 3 tables into the Google Drive, and you can have a look at them to see if they're helpful. I went through the survey today, or the census today, and tried to pull out the ones I thought gave us the best information in regards to, it definitely gives us median income, if that helps. It'll be interesting to see how close it compares to the information that Matt is going to provide to us.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the question next is in regards to moving forward with policy development. The last, I don't know if either of you have a copy of the last, I actually don't have it right here in front of me either. The last remuneration report that was prepared by Council for the remuneration review that was done in February of 2019, included the actual policy information. I'm not sure that we're necessarily changing any of we're changing maybe the comparators that we're looking at compared to what they looked at previously. We're discussing a new range for salary information between the mayor, deputy mayor, and council members. We're going to be providing an option in regards to changes to the salary levels. But any additional research that we want to include, as I mentioned, I think we should review the 2 reports that I sent out today and see if there's anything in there that we might want to include in our research as support for why we're suggesting the changes we are. In regards to guiding principles, is there anything, like, have either of you reviewed the previous report that was prepared by Matt? Are you comfortable with the previous report? Because
yeah,
we actually,
I'll take a look at it just to refresh myself about it.
okay, because we're going to need to, the next step now is actually starting to write the policy information. And yes, there's still a little bit more analysis we need to do, but I think we've locked down the range of wages we want to pay. Therefore, now what we need to do, we've already talked about the compensation levels. We've already talked about the range of ratios. Are we considering changing any of the current benefits and remuneration expenses or reimbursement expenses that are currently given to the council members? This includes reimbursements for meals or conferences or travel. I don't think we're changing any of those. We're only considering changing the actual salary level. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Are you in agreement to that, Ted, or do you?
Yep, that's fine. I think, I mean, we're talking about a fairly big number on the salary. I think everything else is going to seem pretty small in comparison, and probably doesn't have to be addressed. And if it simplifies the message to council and what they vote on, then all the better, I think.
Okay.
So I wonder if it would be useful for you as a committee that what Margaret and I could do between now and the next meeting, which I think is scheduled for fairly early September, we can take the existing policy and make the amendments based on what you've been talking about today and do that in the track changes format, so that when we come to the meeting next time, that can be one of the documents in your agenda package, and then we can go through that gradually and make sure that you're happy with the changes that we put in, or if there's anything else that you want to be amended as well.
Okay, the analysis, I'm in agreement to that, Matt. I think that's fantastic. Our analysis or report part, is that going to be included in your document, or will that be a separate document that we write?
So what it'll be is it'll be a separate document as a council report that sort of goes along with the policy, because it's the policy that council will actually adopt, whereas the report is, as you say, the background information. We do have a format that we normally do those in when it's a staff report. And so we can either do it in that format and sort of it comes from you as a committee and us as staff as the support for it, or you guys can produce it in any way, shape or form that you like, really. And then it would just be a document that comes from you as a committee. So I'm very happy that we could start to write a report based on your conversations, and then you can edit and give feedback as we go through the next meeting or so, or you can start writing something yourselves. It really depends on what works for you.
I think you editing the existing report is fine. I'm assuming from the document I was talking about earlier, which was your remuneration report that you did back in 2019. I'm assuming this is the format you're talking about, and our analysis or our discussion of the changes would fill in that analysis section, but that you would fill in the rest of the information. So we would
Absolutely.
be in particular writing our own information in regards to the analysis that we've made. We will provide that information to you. You will put it in whatever language properly matches what municipal language should look like, and then we'll review that document. So between now and the next
Absolutely.
meeting, if Ted puts together the explanations for the charts, and if I can do a summary or key points of the two reports that I'm mentioning that I think are important, that might make up most of the information that we'll be including in the analysis section of your report. My question is, or my wonder is, whether we should be providing two scenarios, whether we should be going with the full 43,000 increase, or whether we should do a slightly lower to give them an option of two numbers.
I don't think so.
Okay, I'm just trying to be two-sided.
But Ted's got us 3 cents worth here too.
Yes, Ted, what do you think?
I think one of the options could be whether it's done all at once or whether it's phased over, say, a 2-year period or a 3-year period.
Is that something that happens normally, Matt? Is that an option for us to phase in, or?
It's certainly an option. It has happened before with certain things. We haven't had a significant change in council salary for a while, so I don't think we've phased that. But yes, if you were saying that it was a $10,000 increase for the 2 positions, we could do that in 3 chunks or in 2 chunks, or whatever it will be.
But I'm really in Phil's camp here. That's here's a recommendation. Let council figure out how they're going to do it. If they want to phase it in to make it more palatable to the electorate, then that's their decision to make. We don't have to come up with their that appropriate or that approach.
I got the feeling that they're very scared of what the electorate is going to say if they get a big chunk of money. I got that. I don't know whether you got that out of the interview, but whenever you talked about it, they backed away from trying to say anything.
Yeah, and I think that's why we need these kind of graphical evidence to say that hey, there's no getting away from the fact that it looks like the mayor's salary is significantly under rated compared to the all the metrics that we're looking at.
Yes.
If you squint your eyes, don't look too detailed at each one. And we're trying to get a sense of what is most appropriate. So again, there may be 1 or 2 that I should take a look at, and definitely the income might help in that regard, and it may surprise us in some respects as well. So
exactly.
I'm in the camp. We make 1 recommendation.
Yeah.
That's where
I'm coming around to that too.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just trying to bring a consensus together. I am also in agreement to it being all at once, but I wanted to make sure that I wasn't the only one. Does anybody have anything else that they would like to add to I feel like we should be giving Phil some work. I'm working on something. Ted's working on something. What should we have Phil do?
Well, I just enjoy sitting here.
Oh, so we should get you to do the presentation.
I think Phil should do the presentation.
Oh, yes. Would they enjoy me making this presentation?
Well, we have time to make that decision, but it sounds like it's going to be me. But that's okay. Okay, so
you're the boss. That's what the boss has to do.
Now I'm understanding why both of you said nothing. I know for next time to be the one to say nothing.
Yeah, you jumped right at it, and we just sat back.
Yeah.
It's not that I jumped. I just knew both of you were hesitating, and I felt one of us had to do it. So that's fine. I can sell anything, so that's fine. Okay, so our next meeting is scheduled for September 14th. Mm-hmm. And between now and that next meeting, if we could have the analysis from Ted, that would be great. I will do a brief synopsis of the 2 reports that I think we also should be including with our analysis. And if we can review that, if it's shared with everybody maybe more than a day before, then hopefully we can have a working body of the report coming together. Because at the same time, Matt and Margaret are going to be working on the other part. If we can get our piece into it, that would be helpful.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have anything to add?
No.
Okay,
I think
so
this was the most productive meeting yet, I think.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, very well done.
I think so. Ted, thank you very much for doing that analysis for us. I was very impressed, and I think that we're in a good position now. I feel more comfortable now than I did at the end of the last meeting. So I think we're in a good position to move forward.
Excellent.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for attending, and it is 4:10 and I'm adjourning the meeting. Have yourselves a great rest of the day.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye.